This happened to me not too long ago, and I'm still shivering just thinking about it. So let me set the scene for you. It was a dark and stormy night, just like those old horror movies, and I was home alone. My parents were out visiting my grandma, and my dog Max was sleeping in the other room. Everything seemed normal until I got a series of creepy phone calls that turned my world upside down. It all started with a soft ring of my cell phone. I picked it up, thinking it might be my folks checking in, but instead I heard this weird whisper on the other end. The voice was all raspy and eerie, like it came straight from a horror movie. It said something like, "I see you, alone, in the dark." My heart jumped right out of my chest. I asked who it was, but there was just silence, and then the call ended. I tried to brush it off as a wrong number or some dumb prank call, but then it happened again and again. Each time the voice got creepier, whispering strange and unsettling messages. It felt like someone was watching me, even in my own home. I was so scared that I locked all the doors and windows and turned on all the lights. By the third call, I couldn't take it anymore. My hands were shaking like crazy as I dialed 911. The operator was calm, but she told me to stay on the line while they traced the call. I was relieved to have someone with me, even if it was just over the phone. The police took their sweet time tracing the call, and during that wait, I was a nervous wreck. Every creak of the house, every rustle of the trees outside, I thought someone was coming for me. It felt like an eternity before the officer came back on the line. He said they had traced the calls to a prankster who had dialed the wrong number repeatedly, intending to cause mischief. Can you believe that? At first I couldn't believe it. I mean, all those creepy messages were just a mistake. It was a weird relief mixed with annoyance, like why would someone waste their time freaking me out like that? But as they explained, the person was just trying to scare their friend, and they had entered the wrong number in their phone. It was a random accident that led them to call me over and over again. It was bizarre, right? I mean, who would think that something like this could happen? I never expected that a series of creepy phone calls would be the result of a silly prank gone wrong. It was one of those typical Thursday nights, just me, my trusty old dog Daisy, and the quiet solitude of our home. We live alone, no one to bother us, no one to interrupt our peaceful routine. But that night was different. There was a stillness in the air, a kind of silent anticipation that hung heavily around us. The time was well past midnight. You know, when the world seems to stop. Everything's so quiet that even the softest whisper feels like a scream. I was sitting on my worn-out couch, the glow of the TV casting long shadows in the dim room. Daisy was curled up on her favorite rug by the fireplace, her ears twitching occasionally, listening to the quiet hum of the night. That's when I first heard it. A faint sound, so soft that I could have easily dismissed it as a figment of my imagination. But then, it came again, louder this time. It was a series of distant footsteps, echoing through the eerie silence. Accompanying the footsteps was a sort of muffled rustling, like someone going through a pile of papers or ransacking a drawer. In my mind, it didn't make sense. Why would anyone be in my house at this hour? The sounds continued, growing in intensity, transforming from an innocent rustle to an unmistakable threat. My heart pounded in my chest, echoing the rhythmic cadence of the footsteps. I glanced at Daisy, looking for some kind of validation that I wasn't just hearing things. Her ears were perked up, her body rigid. She was staring at the door, her tail between her legs. Daisy, my ever-fearless companion, seemed afraid. With an unsteady hand, I reached for the baseball bat I kept behind the door. My palms were sweaty, my breath shallow. I knew I had to investigate, despite every instinct screaming at me to stay put. Slowly, I began to explore my own house. Each room felt alien, the shadows dancing on the walls, making the familiar seem foreign. The sound was coming from outside, I realized, as I tiptoed towards the back door. I peered out into the moonlit yard. The sight that greeted me was both strange and anticlimactic. My trash bins, usually neatly lined up against the wall, were toppled over. The lids were scattered, and a stray cat was busy rummaging through the spilled contents. I couldn't believe it. I'd scared myself senseless over a cat. The wave of relief that washed over me was palpable. My house wasn't under threat. There wasn't an intruder, it was just a cat. A skinny, ragged-looking cat that was probably hungrier than it was harmful. The cat glanced in my direction, perhaps sensing my presence. Then, with a dismissive flick of its tail, it vaulted over the fence and disappeared. As I stood there, watching the cat's hasty retreat, I realized how my imagination had exaggerated a simple situation into a terrifying ordeal. I spent the next few minutes returning the trash bins to their rightful place, securing the lids tightly. I then took a slow walk around the house, double-checking the doors and windows. Everything was as it should be, nothing out of place. My heartbeat returned to its normal pace, the adrenaline slowly ebbing away. This happened to me just a few months back when I was home alone, and let me tell you, it was the scariest moment of my life. So, there I was, chilling in my living room, binge-watching some spooky shows on TV, when I heard this knock on my front door. Now, I wasn't expecting anyone, and it was late at night, so naturally my heart started racing. I mean, who could be at my door at that hour? I tiptoed to the door, trying to be all sneaky-like, and I peeked through the peephole. And there, on the other side, was this person I had never seen before. They looked agitated, all disheveled, and their eyes were darting around like they were on the run from something. It sent chills down my spine. I was hesitant to open the door, but they started banging on it, demanding to be let in, saying they were in distress and needed a place to hide. Now, I'm no hero, but I also couldn't just ignore someone who seemed to be in trouble. So, I cracked the door open just a little bit, enough to talk to them. They started pleading, saying they were being chased by some dangerous people and needed shelter. But something about their demeanor seemed off, like they were unpredictable and unstable. My gut was screaming at me to stay away, but I didn't want to be rude or heartless, you know? In that moment, I remembered the safety precautions my mom always told me about when I was home alone. She said to never open the door to strangers, no matter how desperate they seemed. So I came up with a plan. Trying to keep my voice steady, I said, "Hold on a sec, let me call the police, they'll know what to do." I pretended to grab my phone, even though I was secretly praying that I had enough signal to make a call. I acted like I was talking to the police, telling them that someone was trying to break into my house. And you know what happened next? The person at the door freaked out. They looked around like they were scared the cops would come any minute. In that moment of panic, they turned and ran into the darkness. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. I couldn't believe what just happened. My heart was pounding like crazy, and I was shaking all over. I called the real police right away, and they came over to check things out. But by then, the person was long gone. They searched the area, but there was no trace of him. The cops told me I did the right thing, pretending to call them, 'cause who knows what that person could have done if they got inside. Now I can't stop thinking about what might have happened if I had opened that door without thinking. I shudder just imagining it. From that day on, I became extra cautious about my safety. I double-check all the locks before going to bed, and I don't open the door unless I'm sure it's someone I know.